Alright, here's a replay of a chess game I just had. This is kind of a Sicilian defense opening. Pressure his bishop to back off. I really like this opening. It's pretty strong. You got the bishop protecting the queen's gambit. Deploying the knights early is always a pretty good strategy. He hasn't deployed a lot of his pieces yet. He's going to castle soon. This pin is actually a pretty good pin. If he takes away my knight, only the queen is guarding this middle pawn. And a good strategy for chess is to kind of capture or have control of the middle center of the board. That's why the knights are so good at attacking these middle squares here. He's trying to pin my king, protecting my knight. He castles, I castle. I was thinking of moving my pawn up to kind of back him up and then advance my pawns for positioning. You see, he's not really his knight is kind of useless over here. His bishop is also, you want it to have a long range, a lot of angles. I castle, he backs up, I pressure the queen. He's playing a little defensive over here. Knights really aren't that good on the edges, but because I want to guard this square here and kind of pressure his queen, I thought that was a good move. He deploys his knight. The reason I brought my bishop out here is because if that way this pawn is unable to move forward. It's pinned by the bishop. And then he already foresaw that I was trying to move my pawn up here, because his pawn again cannot move forward or attack. So he's going to move his queen over. And from here, his queen can actually go here, which would attack my bishop or force it back. So that was a pretty good move. I decide to take out his knight. This ruins his pawn structure, makes this pawn weaker. My bishop also was just protecting this knight. My queen can do that. It's always a good idea to take control of the center lanes. So you move your rook over, and if his queen is gone, his bishop is defenseless. You want to control these middle lanes, these open lanes if possible. This knight here is a good move because this knight has so much control when the knight is in the middle of the board. It has 2, 4, 6, 8 places it can go to attack from. So it makes it a threat once it's in the middle, and it's also pressuring my bishop here. So this knight will remain here for quite a bit. I force him to trade pieces over here. Instead of eating it with the pawn, I just take it with the bishop to trade. I try to make his bishop back up. Hopefully he would back up over here rather than here. I want my knight to be unpinned and free to move. I bring my knight here just to kind of pester him. He's going to back up. And from here, he's trying to protect this pawn. And I really don't care about this pawn. It's pretty useless over here. But again, this is good positioning, attacking these squares. And then I go and pester his queen more. A lot of queen checks. And then I'll probably move my knight over here to kind of just keep pestering the queen. Oh, I'll move my rook here to pin down this pawn. I know that if my knight comes here, then my knight and rook will be attacking this pawn. He's going to protect it. I get the queen check, attacking the pawn. This also has you know, if this pawn wasn't here, you would have a really good pin. And I was kind of waiting for an opening to put him into check and see if I could attack the queen at the same time or find a pin, but that didn't work out. Best to the queen. Queen comes down. Um, really, all my pieces are protected here. Um, but I decide to attack the bishop. This is called a fork because you're attacking both the queen and the bishop. And now the queen, in order to protect its bishop, cannot move here. The knight is guarding this square. Cannot move here. It's guarding this square. So he decides to move right there. I decide to take the bishop. He moves his pawn up to kind of take out my knight from his square. Decent move. I believe I take. No. I decide, you know what? Hey, this guy is in threat, but I'm gonna move here, pester its queen, and then my knight can move away and pester it again. So if you were if you were black, where would you go? Uh, his queen is just running most of this game. He moves over there. I decide to keep pestering it. And see, I kind of missed that. I actually didn't see that he could take my pawn here, but that's okay because I can get his pawn. He moves his rook over, trying to pin my knight down, but that's a decent move. I move my rook over here. It's protected because when this pawn is protected, he can't move here. He can't move here. He can't move here. He can't move here. It would force him to go way next to his king. He can't eat me, or he would have to go right here, which is a pretty good spot because he would be attacking both this pawn and this pawn, even though my queen is guarding both. So I take his pawn, which protects my knight. He's attacking my knight again. I get out of the way. From here, I could actually eat his pawn, but I for some reason I wasn't paying attention. I could probably eat his pawn for free, but instead I decide to move my queen over here, I think. Now this is a pretty good move. You're attacking his knight and his pawn. He can't protect his pawn. I got too much pressure on this square, and the reason why this move is good is because it's protecting this pawn still. This knight has got this pawn protected. My rook is protecting this knight, and so this knight needs to move out of the way. He's going to back up over here. And now if you can already see this, I have kind of like this invisible attack to his rook. Once I move this knight to put him into check, then he has to deal with that, and his rook is unguarded. So now he's in check. We're getting close to checkmate here. If he eats it with the rook, he would lose in that trade. He would lose 2 points, which actually probably would have been the best move because then he's gonna have to either move his king or eat it. He decides to move closer to it. Then the logical move would be to eat his rook, put him in check. And at this point, he resigns because his rook can't block it. His queen is way too far, so it's out of the situation. His knight would probably be the only move. He can't back up. He can't move forward. The knights are guarding too many squares. So the only way to block the check would be to move his knight here. And then my queen can come in, eat the knight, and it'd be checkmate. So that's where he resigns. GG.